Hey, welcome back. Thanks for having me on your show, Mrs. Bliss Cross. This is Mr. Reality, and I wanted to ask you about this myth and conspiracy that's been plaguing the airwaves since 1966. The story that Paul McCartney, the real Paul McCartney, actually died in a car crash in December of 1966. And I wonder if we could put this to bed finally. Maybe ask some of the members of the Beatles the truth, the mystery, and what's behind it, if it was just a publicity stunt gone wrong, so we can find out.
Yeah, I've had people ask me this before, and I never knew why. People thought Paul McCartney was dead or is dead. I don't know. I never thought too much into it. So
There are a
where are we
couple
going
things
with
in the
this?
Sergeant Pepper's cover, and the Paul is maybe being propped up, and they said that it was a reason that they were showing a propped up person. And if you turn it around, there's a picture of everybody in the front, but you can't see Paul. His back is behind him. So there's a lot of mystique around it, and there's conspiracy theorists amok saying that Paul is actually dead. So I thought we could put that to bed this time. Maybe talk to some of the original Beatles and find out from them, and some of them that are long gone past. So who do
Yeah,
we want to
okay.
probe first? I thought we could start with let's see. Let's bring in John Lennon. Gone too soon, a victim of a terrible assassination attempt. Maybe hear from him what he's been up to since he crossed over.
Wow. Okay. What have you been up to since you left us? Working on his music.
How does he do that without hands?
Yeah, really. How do you do that without hands? It's all in the mind.
So the contract between he and his assassin, we won't mention his name, but was that something that was pre-planned? Did they have a past life connection between each other?
Ooh, was that something that was pre-planned? Yes, he wanted to leave to make the biggest mark on society. Hmm. And what was the previous life like for the two of you? Like, how did you know each other in past life? Oh, so John actually got rid of him in a past life. And so it was his turn to experience the leaving.
I wonder if you could tell us about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, the BBC Bandit, because they said it was about LSD. What was that song about originally?
What was that song about? Originally, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Was it about LSD? Absolutely, it was about LSD.
Where did he get the other inspiration for some of the best hits that he came up with?
Where did you get the inspiration for some of the best hits that you came up with? He was very good at meditating and he was very good at dreaming and very good at astral travel and astral projection. He used to go and gather a lot of information, like it's and find things to write about. So he may have a flash of information that he or a scene that he, had in his mind or meditation. He would really go into the depths. And I'm saying, but would you go into yourself? No, it was never about going into himself. It was always about going outside of himself and finding something, as he put, groovy, to write about, to sing about, and to then build the the song or the information around what he saw. Did the other Beatles know that you got information like this? No, not necessarily. He would just come with them to, come to them with an idea. And I'm saying to him, well, did they not ask you about it or question you? Yeah, they would. And he would always just say, oh, it was in a dream. But he was actually controlling the information. So if he wanted to, and I'm saying, but were you saying things like I will need to go and find, my next hit? He says, absolutely. he would do that.
What did that level of fame do to him, both on a earth plane level and then furthermore on a soul level?
What did the level of fame do to you on an earth plane level? Well, he's saying on an earth plane level, it totally went um to his head. He says it wasn't good for him. He lost sight of reality. He lost who he was. Uh it you know, it wasn't good. It allowed him to amass this huge ego that was nothing like who he really was. And on a soul level, what happened with the fame? On the soul level, it was great. Like, will you ever have that again? No, no, he won't have that again for right now. He says on a soul level, it was great for his soul because he got to actually feel powerful for once on the earth plane.
Is he incarnated now or coming back?
Are you incarnated now? No, he is still in the spirit world. And I'm saying, are you waiting for Yoko? Yes, I do feel like he's waiting for Yoko. Are you two soulmates? Always, always soulmates.
Here is
Are you?
Yoko. She's 91 and just
Wow.
moved out into a farm that they had. So she's still around.
She's got, he says, according to him, John Lennon, he's saying that she's got a lot of life left yet. She's not
Wow.
ready to go.
That's a lot to do. I want to ask John
Yeah.
Lennon point blank, did Paul McCartney die in a car crash in 1966?
Did Paul McCartney die in a car crash in 1966? No, far from it.
Did the original Paul McCartney that you started the Beatles with die, or is he still alive today?
Did the original Paul McCartney who started the Beatles with, is he still alive today? He's alive and well. He does have a few health problems, but he's alive and well.
All right, I guess that answers our question, and we can wrap it up. I wanted to ask a couple questions of George Harrison just to see what he's been up to and how he's feeling. Is here he is in I can't know what year that is. 1974. He's no longer with us, but again, a life cut too short. So, what's George Harrison up to now?
George Harrison, what are you up to now? He is working on his life plan. Now, what is interesting about George and John is that they were brothers in a past life. And I'm saying,
Really?
really? Yeah. And he says, oh, yeah, lots of. What about Paul and Ringo? Were you all brothers in a past life? And I feel like they were. They were definitely in past lives. They were brothers. They were part of the same soul family.
Wow. Uh,
Mm.
what what inspired George Harrison to create the avant-garde style that he did on Revolution 9?
Ooh, what inspired you to create the avant-garde style? It's what he energetically aligned with, he says. I felt comfortable. You know, everybody had to carve out their own niche. Um, we all started developing our own characteristics and our own ways, and it was how we were going to be characterized and recognized by the public. We all had to develop our own unique style, and that was his style.
What did the fame do for him, both on the soul plane level and down here on Earth? Was he able to keep true to himself?
Were you able to keep true to? Yes, I feel he's telling me I always remained humble. And what about to the soul? It still was not fulfilling the void within the soul. That actually makes a lot of sense because You know how you hear all these stars that go off the rails, and they just keep chasing fame and becoming even more famous, but it doesn't seem to work for them, and they're getting deeper and deeper into their addictions.
Brittany
That's
Palmer.
basically what
Yeah.
he's saying. It didn't fill the void.
What creates that void? Why is there a void with all that fame and success? We'd all think down here that that kind of success must have happiness. What creates that, the anti hole or the hole?
What creates the hole? The hole is there in the energy field, and it was created a long time ago, he says. His was created from birth. Did you bring that void in with you? Essentially, yes. He brought the void into the current lifetime or that lifetime. And that's what he does. He travels in and out of lifetimes with the void. Did you fix it in your last lifetime as George Harrison? He says pretty much. Just about. There's still a few little bits and pieces that need to be tied up, loose ends, but he's saying for the most part, he did fix the void. And drugs were not the answer, he says.
Let's ask George Harrison. Did Paul McCartney die in a car crash in 1966?
Did Paul McCartney die in a car crash in 1966? No.
Did they start that hoax or did it just sort of snowball on its own?
Oh, you mean like for fame and fortune?
Yeah, I mean,
Did you?
it sort of came to the fruition, I think, more a couple of years later. But
No, no, they did not.
all right, let's see if we can bring in Ringo Starr, who's currently still alive and kicking at 84 years old. Ringo.
Okay, he's not
Does
well.
Ringo, he's not well. Why not?
What's going on with you? You know, I'm picking up dementia.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's horrible. What leads to that dementia? Why would you put that on your soul path?
Why would you put dementia on your soul path? Why did you choose that? Because what? Um, so he's saying this is a very bizarre answer, but he says he wanted to remain alive and allow his consciousness to travel. So are you saying that a lot of people with dementia uh are their consciousness travels? Oh, absolutely, he says. Their consciousness is free to roam while they're still in the body, the soul, but it's a way for the consciousness to travel. And I'm saying, okay, so the soul picked this, and I wouldn't say he's full-blown dementia, right? But I can definitely see that he has some there.
Sorry to
Um,
hear that.
but he's saying that the soul or his soul chose this in order to have consciousness freedom. But if you don't have the brain capacity to process what is going on when you're out gathering the information, how is that actually beneficial? And he just said to me, it's not. So, what is the point of having your consciousness be free to go, gather this info, gather maybe past life, present life, future life, talk to people on the astral plane? How are you intaking this information? Is it going into the soul? No, it's going into the subconscious. And is it bypassing the conscious mind mostly? But what does the subconscious do with it? Nothing. See, it's going nowhere because he doesn't have the brain capacity to process the information. So I have to ask this question. So would you say now, knowing this, as I'm putting it to you now, would you think that this was a good choice? No, absolutely not. Now it's going to be a very slow decline for him. Um, as far as the dementia is concerned, and he's going to be well taken care of course. He's also very easily manipulated, is what I'm getting. But nonetheless, he's already, he's going to be well taken care of. It's all going to be in a trust, he's saying. and he's
Was
got plans in place to look after him.
was there anything that he had in this lifetime, maybe health wise or food wise, that led to this early onset dementia, or was he always going to get it no matter what he did because it was on his soul path?
Were you always going to get it no matter what because it was on your soul path? Yes. It was sold to him as like a brain disease, right? And I'm saying,
Who's
but
selling these things up there? Where's the
yeah, who's
bad
selling this? Well,
oil
it's like
salesman up
this.
there?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's like a board that you choose from. Oh, do you want this? It's almost like they're on post-it notes or sticky notes, right? And you're picking the sticky note. Oh, okay, I'll try this or I'll do that. I'm saying, have you had dementia before? And he's saying yes, when in his last lifetime, and he quite enjoyed it. And I'm saying, but how can you enjoy it? Because you're completely cut off from being able to process emotions effectively. So how would you be able to enjoy it? But he's saying it's not about me, it's about the other people that are having to deal with the dementia as
We've
well.
gotten that
So they're the
before
ones.
also.
Sorry.
We've gotten that before too with
Uh-huh.
Jack Hanna. Has he had any other incarnations with his other Beatle mates?
Did you just hear that noise?
It was weird. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
What was that?
I don't know. I heard something very strange. It was like in the background,
It
garbly,
was a
robot.
female voice. It
I'll
was
have
a
to play that
voice.
back.
Did you hear that voice?
We're gonna play it back and figure out what it said. I didn't hear it. I heard something. I couldn't pick it up though.
I'm sure it said hello.
Can we ask Source what that was?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, okay, creep factor 10 plus off the charts. Like that gave me chills. Like I clearly heard a voice say hello and they spoke it through the speaker. And it wasn't you and it wasn't me. The audience would have heard that. If you did you hear that?
I heard a little bit. Source. Let's ask, find out what
Oh
that
my
came from.
God.
If it was a Zoom confabulation or what.
Was it a Zoom? No, it's spirit trying to muscle in on our on our video.
Who was the spirit person that's trying to interject in our Beatles probe?
Who is this that's trying to interject in the probe? Is this a female? John says it was him. And I'm
Who?
saying, but you sounded like a female, John Lennon. I think he doesn't. Is it because the attention is taken off of you for, yeah, he wants to talk. This is
But
so
it's about
wild,
Paul.
right?
Oh, your tabs are closed. I can't bring you back if your tab is closed. I wanted to bring, I've got other people I have to talk to. I wanted to
Can
talk
you
to,
believe that?
I've never heard of such a thing. That's the first time that's ever
But
happened.
you clearly heard that on the, oh my God.
So
That
John
is
Lennon
so
just
wild.
interrupted because we're not talking to John Lennon. What a John Lennon thing to do of
How
him.
did you do that? So let's ask it. How did you do that? He sent a frequency. It took a lot of energy, his soul energy, and he sent a frequency in order to transmit. And did you say hello? Yes, he did. He said hello. And I said, but when it came out, it sounded like a female or it sounded like computerized. And he said, yeah, that was my intention to get it across to you. Like he wants to talk. You know what? So I have to tell you, there was a friend. I don't want to give too much away, but a friend of my dad's, right, who was actually one of he was the piano player on a lot of John Lennon songs. And he's also passed. And as we've been doing this video, I was thinking about him. And so was it him? No, it wasn't him that was coming through. His name is Nicky Hopkins. Um, We knew him quite well and his wife. Anyway, so what is, and I'm saying, was that Nikki trying to come through? No, it was John. It was clearly John. He thought that this probe was going to be about him and not so much about Paul. And I'm saying, okay, but
We haven't
was
even
this
gotten to
kind
Paul
of,
yet.
did you hear that again?
What did he say this time?
I don't know. I don't know. I heard it again. Anyway, so I'm saying, are you what was this how you operated though in the Beatles? Like you were always the one, the front man or the one that, he says, absolutely. I always take the lead. The others are just a byproduct. And I'm like, well, that's not very nice. So were
That's
you
not a
and
team
Paul?
player.
I know. So were you and Paul and Ringo and George, did you all get along well? I mean, reasonably well. Did you get along well with Paul? He's saying no, not really. There was a lot of disagreement between he and Paul because Paul wanted the limelight and John wanted the limelight. And I'm saying, okay, so how would you settle these disagreements? And Paul would always back down. John would always win the agreements. He liked being the face and the front of the Beatles.
All right.
And
Well,
I'm
that's
saying,
a
but do you
first.
not, yeah, so do you not, yeah, really, do you not agree that it was like the Fab Four? He says yes to some extent. Were you who originally, was the band supposed to be John Lennon and the Beatles? No. No, but he says, obviously, I'm the more popular one. Talk about bloody ego coming through
Holy
here. I mean,
moly.
this is
Well, thank you,
bad.
John Lennon. We appreciate you. We're going to have you sit in the back now while we ask questions of Paul
If you'll
McCartney.
be
So
quiet.
I wondered if we could bring in the consciousness of Paul McCartney still with us and still an inspirational electronic dance music artist and can play a lot of instruments and very well known and very famous. And did what's Paul think about John Lennon trying to shoehorn in on a probe that we're doing of his death?
Yeah, believe like we've never had a spirit that has been so powerful. I mean, I've heard of people like they'll pick up EVPs during the videos, right? And they'll say EVP, such and such a time. Right, but to blatantly manipulate the frequency and to say hello, I've
Well, we
never
had the
had that
Kanye
before.
come through when we did the his girlfriend's probe. That was the only other time I can recall that that happened.
Yeah, but not to this level. I mean, that was a clear hello. I'm like, even though I've
Hopefully
been doing this for many
it'll be
years,
on the Zoom call and you can all hear it, hopefully.
yeah, even though I've been doing this for many years, like it still always fascinates me what they can do on the other side. Okay, so let's ask Paul. Paul, what happened? Did you get in a car wreck in 1966? Yeah, it was a bad one. And I'm saying, and what happened? I survived to tell the tale.
It didn't die.
Did you die? No,
All right.
he
Straight
was
from the
injured.
horse's mouth. What does he think of John Lennon shoehorning in on his mental probe that we're doing?
What do you think about John Lennon? As we were trying to do this probe about you, John Lennon is taking over the airwaves. And what do you what do you think about that? It's typical. He says typical. Oh my
He was like
God.
that in your present incarnation.
Yeah. Was he like that when you were with him in the beat? Always, always very impossible. He was a difficult person. He always had these ideas. He didn't really give way to our ideas very much, unless he was completely off his trolley on drugs, his words, not mine. And apart from that, he really controlled a lot.
Controlled a lot of the direction of the band or the things. What would you like to have done differently that you weren't not allowed to do?
What would you have liked to done differently? He says, some of the songs, he thinks that there were better lyrics out there, but John always wanted to put a twist on the lyrics and make them kind of spacey and more catering to the psychedelic crowd, he says.
Mhm.
But there was much better lyrics, much better choice of lyrics, and they often would fight over lyrics.
What inspired you to write yesterday?
What inspired you to write yesterday? He says the loss of who? His mother.
Is she still with him?
Who, his mother?
Yeah, is she still working around and hanging out with him?
Is she still? No, she died years ago. He says no, she's been gone forever.
What incarnation is this for Paul McCartney?
What incarnation is this for you? He's pretty up there. He's in 4 or 500. He's pushing 500 for
And what
human.
soul path ascension level is he on?
He's on 4.
Wow. What does he need
Mm-hmm.
to do to get to the next level?
What do you need to do to get to the next level? Not have John write bad lyrics.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure.
These guys are so funny, right? I mean, really, they are hilarious. No, really, he's cracking a joke. Um, what do you need to do to get to level 5? A level 5 is giving up all worldly goods,
You don't have anything
physical
up there.
things. Hmm?
You've got nothing up in the spirit world. You can't take it with you.
It's the consciousness. It's all about you and your consciousness. Will you have level 5 here on the earth plane? Yeah, there will be some aspects of level 5 here on the earth plane, but they're very minimal lifetimes, very
Ah.
much, yeah.
What inspired him to write the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album?
To write the album Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's just how he was feeling at the time. Relationships had gone down the pan. Everybody was fighting. Everybody was having marital and girlfriend trouble and strife. Nobody was getting along. It was all falling apart. And it just seemed very fitting.
So they decided to stick a fork in the Beatles and just reinvent themselves and stay together instead of breaking up.
Did you, when the marital issues and the relationship issues were happening, how did you all overcome that? Because I'm sure there was a lot of pressure. Money had already been made. How did you overcome that and decide to stay together? It's a brotherhood. Now, according to Paul's personal thoughts, feelings, and opinions, as we are speaking to him on September 30th, 2024, it's a brotherhood. We had no choice but to stay together. It was contracted.
Oh, haha, that's different. Then it's a brotherhood. It's a contractual brotherhood is different than it's a
Mm.
brotherhood. Um, what was the message behind Strawberry Fields Forever?
What was the message behind Strawberry Fields Forever? Again, big into letting go of your consciousness. I feel that that was somebody's psychedelic experiment. Was that yeah. And it was about, that's all they saw. Like that was their happy place. Strawberry Fields Forever. Like there's nothing better than strawberry fields.
Which one
And
of them had the trip, or did they all collectively have the trip?
ooh, that's a good question. Did you all ever trip together multiple times? And did you all end up in the same place when you did your trip? Like, so would your consciousness all meet together? Presumably you were all in the same room. Yeah, oftentimes they were. And would your consciousness all meet at the same point in the astral realm? Would it meet? Oh, one time it did. Okay. And what did you get? They were sword fighting. They were sword fighting one another for hours, fencing.
So it kind of leads into the next one. I wanted to ask about the song Come Together. What were the inspirations behind that?
What was the inspiration behind the song Come Together? But that's more about the whole world. It's more about the world coming together and uniting as you know, instead of all this, I've got this opinion, you've got that opinion. That's what he's saying to me. It the really the underlying message is, stop the fighting. And it doesn't matter that we have these differences. We should all come together.
What's he think of the legacy in the Beatles in the next 50 years, say in 2075?
Will the legacy of the Beatles still be around? And well, I'm going to have to ask John that. Will the legacy of the Beatles still be around in 2075? Yes. Yes. And it will constantly keep being revived. And I'm saying, okay, but why? Excuse me, why? Because we're legends. Okay, but a lot of legends, their work is only relevant for a certain time period on the earth, and then they sort of fade out. And he says, not us. So will there still be movies about your lives and think, they'll keep rehashing it. The more we're going into AI and removing emotion, the more that they're going to keep going back to these legends, and to talk about them, because we're going to lose sight of star. So are you saying to me with AI, we're not going to really have superstars and super bands and major, stars like you? And he says, yeah, that's right. I'm saying, well, what about even in the movies? He says, well, so that was a question that somebody asked me this week. Will there even be any films being made, in 2075, closer to the turn of the century? There will be, but the messages will be very controlled. And I'm saying, what do you mean by that? The messages will be very controlled. You're not going to have a lot of options or opinions, whereas you would normally go and you could make a docuserie and ask a lot of people a lot of different opinions about certain situation and try to compile it together. That won't be the case as when we're moving more into the AI generated information entertainment. And I'm saying, well, does that mean that as a society we become less opinionated and we become numbed down? And he said, absolutely, we do. He says, we're losing those individual traits and characteristics of ourselves. We
What is
won't
the
have
end goal to that?
opinions. Sorry?
What is the end goal of that?
What is the end goal of that? To control. Yeah, it makes it makes the society easier to control and comply. If you don't have opinions, you're compliant, right? If you're just going with whatever you're told, and you're not connected to your emotions, so you don't feel those emotional tugs when something is right or something is wrong. You numb out, he says. So basically, when something doesn't feel good, if somebody tells you, okay, you come to a fork in the road, you take the left fork as opposed to the right one. Why? Because the left one is better for you. But you could, now you'd have an opinion, well, this, and I want to go this way, and maybe I don't want to go right or left. Maybe I want to just turn around and go home. But, not in, he says, as we move away from our opinions, we become, we get told what we're doing. So you will go left or you will go right.
Just a
Um,
question for John Lennon. Was he ever influenced or told what to write about in music, or was he part of any secret societies during his incarnation?
Oh, were you ever told what to write about in music? I feel that the government did pressure them, he's saying. And I'm saying, what do you mean? Tell us more about that. Because they were such a big influence on society, and because that he was a big, anti-war proponent, the government really cracked down on him. They wanted him to change his view, to change his stance, but instead he was making music and he was gaining ground. You see how that's gone? That's because that was his opinion and he made music around that opinion. And other people started, you know, understanding that opinion, and then they sort of separated themselves from the government.
We don't
And
see a lot of that nowadays. And so does he feel that the society or the military or the song industrial complex, I guess is what I was looking for, is a more controlled narrative?
do you feel that the industrial complex is a more controlled narrative? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, as music and entertainment is moving away from emotional output, people are not going to resonate. So even if you did create a piece of music that was opinionated, it's not really going to catch on. Now we're talking way out in the future, but it's not going to catch on like his music once did. It's not going to be that powerful and persuasive.
All right,
They're not
well,
they're not forming emotional connections to the piece of music.
what level, what number incarnation is John Lennon on?
What number incarnation are you on? He's in the 400s and human.
And what soul path ascension level step is he on?
What's soul path ascension? Four.
Can you tell us about lifetime 211?
Can you tell us about lifetime 211? As a human, your human lifetime 211. Because when I said 211, just in total, he was a bird. In human lifetime 211, oh, he's back in the Stone Age. I can see him doing some sort of stone work. He's pounding stones, pounding something's implement against stones. It was cold. It was difficult. They didn't live for very long. And were you with Yoko in that lifetime? Yes. Yes. And was she your wife in that lifetime? No. She was his mother in that lifetime. Now, that's interesting because there's a lot of lifetimes where she was his mother in many of those lifetimes. And I'm saying, but in this lifetime, did she take a motherly role? Yes, she did. She's very motherly towards him.
Uh, when's he coming back down?
When are you coming back down? Next century.
And does he plan to interrupt any other psychic medium shows?
He says, I had to get my point across. Oh, okay. Do you plan to interrupt any others? He thinks that's funny. He thinks that's really funny. So yeah, I mean, this was an interesting probe. Is Paul gonna be with us for quite some time yet? Well, he says he's on his way out, and I'm saying, but he's not that far gone. What do you think about the Stones still doing concerts and still running around on stage? He says, good for them, good for them.
And one final question for him. I wondered if he can tell us who he's hanging out with on the other plane.
Who are you hanging out with on the other side? His mother.
No cool other like Buddy Holly, anybody else that we would know that is some notoriety?
Anybody have some notoriety that you're aware of? You know, George, well, obviously George Harrison, um, showing me some other stars. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Um, will you come back down? Will the Fab Four be reunited again in the next lifetime? They always seem to make contracts together. They seem to stick together, these four. And will you have what will you be doing in the next lifetime? He says, I don't know yet. It's up for grabs, but will you reunite as a band? He's not sure. He's not sure. Excuse me.
All right, everybody. Thanks. If you're not a member of Liz's Patreon, go to patreon.com/remote view and beyond. We'd like to wish you all a safe October and a safe journey in your week and months ahead. And submit a probe on Liz's site if you go to psychicmediumlizcross.com. See you
Yeah,
next
you
time.
can. Yeah, submit a probe. We got a lot of requests to get through, but I mean, if it's something really interesting, we're going to push it right to the top. So thank you so much for putting this together. Don't forget, Mr. Reality has a tip jar listed down below. Thank you so much.
Bye.